Words are powerful, right? They have the ability to shape our thoughts, influence our emotions, and even change our actions. Think about the last time you read a book that moved you to tears, or a speech that inspired you to take action. Words can be incredibly impactful. They can make us laugh, cry, or even buy stuff we don't need. Advertisers know this all too well. They craft their messages carefully to tap into our desires and emotions, making us believe that we need their products to be happy or successful. It's fascinating how a few well-chosen words can influence our decisions so profoundly. But sometimes words can be sneaky. They can be used to mislead us or avoid telling the whole truth. Have you ever read a document or listened to someone speak and felt like something was off? Maybe the words were technically correct, but they left out important details or were phrased in a way that made the truth hard to discern. This is where the slippery nature of language comes into play. It's like a magic trick, but with language. Just as a magician uses sleight of hand to deceive the audience, people can use words to create illusions. They can distract us with fancy language, make us focus on irrelevant details, or use ambiguous terms to hide the truth. It's a skillful art, and when done well, it can be very convincing. These sneaky words are called weasel words, and they're more common than you might think. Weasel words are terms or phrases that are intentionally ambiguous or misleading. They allow the speaker to make bold claims without committing to anything specific. For example, words like many, some, or experts say can give the impression of authority or consensus without providing concrete evidence. From everyday conversations to political speeches and advertisements, weasel words are everywhere. Politicians use them to make promises without being held accountable. Advertisers use them to make their products sound better than they are. Even in casual conversations, people use weasel words to avoid conflict, or to make their opinions sound more credible. They're like those annoying little creatures that weasel their way into our lives and cause confusion. Just as a weasel can sneak into a henhouse and create chaos, weasel words can slip into our conversations and muddle our understanding. It's important to be aware of these tricks and to question the language we encounter. By doing so, we can become more discerning listeners and readers, and better navigate the complex world of communication. So, what exactly are weasel words? Weasel words are terms or phrases that are intentionally ambiguous or misleading. They are often used in advertising, politics, and everyday conversation to create an impression without making a firm commitment. These words can make statements sound more appealing or convincing than they actually are. But how do they work, and why are they called weasel words? Imagine someone saying, "This product may help reduce wrinkles." At first glance, it sounds promising, right? You might think that using this product will definitely make your skin look younger and smoother. But did they promise it would work? Not really. The key word here is may. This tiny word leaves a lot of room for interpretation and doesn't guarantee any results. They use the word may, which is a classic weasel word. It suggests a possibility without committing to anything specific. This way, if the product doesn't work, the company can say they never promised it would. It creates an illusion of a promise without actually making one. This tactic is often used to avoid accountability while still attracting customers or supporters. Weasel words are slippery and vague. They can easily slip through scrutiny because they don't make concrete claims. This slipperiness makes them useful for those who want to persuade without being held to their words. They make statements sound better than they are. For example, a politician might say, "We are working towards improving the economy." The phrase, "working towards," is non-committal, and doesn't specify any concrete actions or results. They're like adding extra sugar to a cake. It might seem tastier, but it's not any healthier. In the same way, weasel words can make information seem more appealing without adding any real value. So, next time you hear a statement that sounds too good to be true, look out for those weasel words. Why all the fuss about weasel words? Because they undermine clear communication. When people use weasel words, it's hard to know what they really mean. Imagine a politician saying, "We are committed to improving education. Eventually." Does that sound like a solid plan? Not really. Weasel words create confusion and mistrust. They're like trying to build a house on a foundation of sand. Weasel words are everywhere. These sneaky phrases and words are used to manipulate, mislead, or soften the impact of what is being said. They are often used in politics, advertising, and even in our everyday conversations. You might not even realize how often you encounter them. Ever heard someone say, I'm not saying it was your fault, but... This phrase is a classic example of a weasel word. It starts with a disclaimer, making it seem like the speaker is not blaming you, but the word but negates everything that came before it. That but is a red flag. It signals that the speaker is about to shift the blame onto you, despite their initial attempt to appear neutral or non-accusatory. It's a subtle way of deflecting responsibility while still pointing fingers. They're probably about to blame you anyway. This tactic is often used to avoid direct confrontation or to make the speaker seem more reasonable. However, it can leave the listener feeling confused and defensive. Or how about, this might be a dumb question, but... This phrase is another example of a weasel word. It preemptively undermines the question being asked, making it seem less important or valid. People use this phrase to soften the blow, even if the question is perfectly valid. It's a way of protecting themselves from potential criticism or embarrassment. By labeling their own question as dumb, they lower the stakes and make it easier to ask. Weasel words sneak into our daily conversations without us even realizing it. They can be used to manipulate opinions, avoid responsibility, or make statements seem less harsh. These words and phrases are often subtle, making them difficult to detect, but once you start noticing them, you'll see them everywhere. From casual conversations with friends to professional meetings and media reports, weasel words are all around us. Becoming aware of them is the first step in understanding how language can be used to influence and persuade. Section 5. Sneaky weasels in advertising. Advertisers are masters of weasel words. They use them to make products sound amazing without making concrete promises. Up to 50% off? Sounds great, but what does up to really mean? Probably only a tiny fraction of the products are actually discounted that much. Or how about clinically proven? Clinically proven by whom? What were they testing? Always look for the fine print. Section 6. Politicians and their weasel word games. Politicians are notorious for using weasel words. They make promises they can't keep or avoid answering tough questions directly. We're looking into it is a classic politician's response. It sounds like they're doing something, but it could also mean they're just hoping the problem goes away on its own. Don't be fooled by their weasel words. Demand clear and honest answers from our elected officials. Section 7. The power of clear and honest communication. Imagine a world without weasel words. A world where people said what they meant and meant what they said. In this world, we wouldn't have to second-guess every statement. We could trust that people were being upfront and honest with us. Clear communication builds trust and understanding. It helps us make informed decisions and avoid misunderstandings. Section 8. Let's be straightforward. We all have a role to play in creating a world with less weaselness. Let's start by being more mindful of our own language. Instead of saying sort of or kind of, let's be direct. Instead of making vague promises, let's be specific. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but the more we practice clear communication, the easier it will become. Section 9. The bottom line. Say no to weasel words. Weasel words might seem harmless at first glance, but they can have a big impact on our lives. They erode trust, create confusion, and make it harder to communicate effectively. Let's all commit to using clear, honest, and straightforward language. It's time to say no to weasel words and embrace the power of plain speaking.